I've hold on. It's struggling. And we are live. All right. So, everyone who is jumping on, I have with me my friend and fellow grad student slash teaching assistant, Ryan Davis. So, thank you for joining, Ryan.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Definitely. So, we're in some strange times right now, but before we kind
Yes.
of dive on into all that, how about you just kind of introduce yourself, give us a little background?
Cool. Well, as Paul said, my name is Ryan. I am 22 years old. I was born in Tucson, Arizona, and I moved up here,
Just a bit younger than me.
just a couple of years.
Just a bit.
Um, we obviously have very different paths in our lives. Um, I decided to come to college up here in Flagstaff, where Paul is now, for my undergrad 3 years ago. Or actually, I guess it was 4 years ago when I started. And I got my bachelor's in mathematics here.
Nice.
And I decided to continue my education toward a master's degree, which was something I always wanted to do. Even when I was a child, I knew I wanted to get a master's degree. I didn't really know what it meant, but I just knew I wanted it because it
Yep,
sounded
yep.
good. And I decided to switch from mathematics to statistics. Along with you, I'm currently in my first year. First year is nearly over. In a week,
Yeah,
we're done.
it's crazy. Yeah, that's why I decided to do this interview this week because I knew I had wanted to do one of these, and I was like, "Oh, we only have a week left, so I better do this."
And yeah, so that's where I am now. We got 1 year left. I'm currently teaching a quantitative reasoning course, just like Paul is.
Yep,
And I'm really excited to see where this takes me.
that's awesome. That's really exciting. So I'm curious for you. I mean, you've kind of told me, but for everyone else, you started in math and then you switched to doing a master's in stats. I also got my undergrad in math and had a little bit of a different background to get to this point of doing stats. But what was the motivation there?
So I started in math because I didn't really know anything about stats. I remember the reason I started mathematics as a degree is because I was sitting taking the AP Calculus AB exam
Yep.
in high school, and I was on the back page, and I realized when I was finishing the last problem, I was just so happy. I was sitting in the room taking this really hard test, and I was just ecstatic about it. And I finished over an hour early, and I'm like, "Wow, this is great."
That's
I
hilarious.
knew,
You know what? I actually really like. I was one of the same people. I love that exam. I got a 5 on that one.
and as did I,
Good job.
right? So I said, "Well, clearly this is something I need to do." And the other reason is I didn't really know what math meant because I thought math was like calculus, and
Yeah,
calculus
yeah. That's
is
what
great.
a lot of people think.
And so I just started in math. The actual original intention, one of the other reasons I came to NAU was that I started trying to dual major in mathematics and mathematics education, as a lot
Okay.
of our teaching assistants have done. After I took the first teaching course here, I decided that was not for me.
Yep.
There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that secondary education really tailors to the education levels below college, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not the kind of mathematics I was looking to teach. Also, doing that dual major with all the AP credits I brought in, it would have made it so I would have stayed 4 years or longer to get both degrees.
Gotcha.
And without it, I was able to graduate in just 3 years with just the mathematics degree.
That's
So I
really
did
nice.
that. About my second year in, I realized the difference that what mathematics is really about
Yes.
and how much more difficult it could ever be. It was, and I could ever imagine. But I decided to stick with it anyway.
So to those who are watching that don't understand why math wouldn't be like calculus, can you explain to them what you mean by that?
So every university has this particular course, and in our course, it's called Math 320, which is Foundations of Mathematics. And essentially, it's your first real introduction to the
Proof-based
world
course.
of proof writing,
Yeah.
and the idea that everything in mathematics can be described as a ambiguous set of some kind, and that all mathematics is based on these four different axioms, these properties of numbers that we don't really have proof for, we just assume that they're true, and everything from there on up is built. So some of the things you study in that course is the continuity of the natural numbers.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that there's a number bigger than four? How do we know there's a number bigger than 10 million? And
Mm-hmm.
what does infinity really mean? That
Countable,
kind of thing.
countable infinity, uncountable infinity.
There's a lot of those pieces, and it's a lot of machinery. It's no longer just, oh, can you take the integral of this curve and find the area underneath it? Or Calc 3, can you think about this shape that's being drawn around the axis and
Yeah.
find its area? Or it's not even like differential equations, which is, has these real physical applications that you can see. It turns into this surreal, non-tangible experience that gets so abstracted that it is really difficult to think about, but it is
Yep.
also essential to your understanding of where everything comes from.
It
There are some
is. Yeah.
countries that actually teach this backward. You start in things like abstract algebra and proof writing and the fundamentals, and then build up to calculus.
That's
But
that's interesting because I would say after I did more advanced math, I felt like I understood calc better than when I first took calc. So that
absolutely.
does kind of make sense.
So that's one of the big reasons why it's so different. It's a lot about this. Can you really understand, just based on a few sentences, can you prove all these different things that are real and true that we assume to be true
Yep.
about these numbers, and then why this integral really works, and then why, it just breaks it piece by piece into the tiniest little chunks, and sometimes they can get really, really difficult to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't realize how much creativity there is in math, especially in those advanced classes. Like I talked to someone, actually someone that I graduated with at Gonzaga. She was a double major in art and math, and she went on to get her PhD. And she said she felt like she got more of a creative outlet in math than she did in art. Believe it or not.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have that experience, so I don't know if I could agree with
I
that.
yeah, I don't have the experience of art either, but
Certainly math becomes much less formulaic,
mhm.
and it becomes a lot more of
It's
what
really
different methods can you apply to solve this problem? How
yeah.
can you find the proof? It's not so much this is how you do it, it's more like how do you do it?
Yes.
Figure it out.
Exactly. And it's just really it's reasoning. Reasoning,
Yes.
logic, and not always that doesn't always apply to numbers, but sometimes it does.
Agreed. Yes,
of
very
of
much.
course, you and I now are in statistics, which I feel like well, even with that, there's like the high theoretical level, but most of it can be applied to real data sets and numeric values. But okay, so getting into the stats though, you went from math, you started on this master's degree. Can you give people an idea of what a master's in statistics entails? I of course know because I'm going through this program with you, but just kind of like what do you have to do to get a master's in stats and why is that beneficial?
Yeah, there are different requirements depending on the university and where you go. I think you might ask me about that later with regards to oral exams, so I'll
Yep.
hold off on that.
Okay. Okay.
Um, But as far as the actual degree goes, it's at least here at NAU. I can't speak for other colleges, but at NAU we have this 2-year program, and it's broken into a year of theory essentially and a year of applied. So our program, at least when you and I entered, we entered into this theory portion where we get a
Yep.
lot of this high level. Where do all of our hypothesis tests come from? What are these distributions? How do we form these distributions? How can we use them to make statements about statistics and just a lot of kind of like math, kind of like the foundations. There's a lot of proving involved in these things. It is a lot more tangible
Mm-hmm.
because you can more see how it directly relates to how we use statistics, as opposed to mathematics, where it can be quite a few jumps to realize why it's
Definitely.
important.
Yeah.
So we take a year of that theory based stuff, and the other year is involved with main statistics courses that are applied. So you can learn how you can take all of these models and theorems and distributions and whatever else and put them into experimental design,
Mm-hmm.
actually figure out um, how to conduct an experiment, what methodologies to use, how to use them, and also categorical data analysis. How can we take things, because in the real world, a lot of analyses aren't done with numbers or
Right.
ordinal systems. It's all nominal systems and categories and things like that. So we haven't gotten there yet, but I do know that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And then our program also involves one semester that is essentially your choice. You get to pick an area that you want to, maybe something you're really interested in that you could apply statistics to. Essentially, this area can be anything because statistics can be applied to almost anything
Yep.
analysis wise. So you could do this coherent area in coding, learning language programs like R. You could use it in forestry. There's a lot of statistics that goes into forestry, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of geospatial mapping that goes into that there. You could use it in informatics, which is what I'm going into, and
Yep.
looking more at other statistical methodologies like Bayesian methods, because we do more classical thinking methods
Mm-hmm.
in our program. And so that's a nice little niche that we get to have different from a mathematics master's because we get to explore something that we're actually interested in and see how we could use the statistics we are learning in the program to actually apply it there. Finally, we have a what is it called? The consulting lab,
Yep.
statistical consulting lab. So it's a piece of the program built in where we as MS statistics students, along with the advisors, some of the professors in our department,
Mm-hmm.
offer free services to any researchers where we actually take their problems. We meet with them weekly. We'll be doing this next semester, and we meet with them weekly and consult with them, give them ideas about, or actually conduct. Well, we're going to conduct the statistical analyses for them. We're going to take
Right.
their data. We're going to advise maybe what type of experiments they need to do or what sample size they need to have. I don't know all of those details, but I know that it's a real excellent way to get us involved in how we could be. It's just a really good way for us to learn how to apply all of the statistical knowledge we've learned to
Mm-hmm.
a real researching situation.
And I think that'll be good for, I mean, obviously we're taking that next semester, but for like a real life type situation, like when, I've been an actuary for several years and you'll be given a problem and you're trying to help someone figure it out. There's really no set way of doing it. Whereas, um, when you're in a class, it's not like there's even a set way of doing it in class either, but usually when you have a problem, you kind of have a set of steps you go through. And so I think this is going to help us think outside of that in terms of like, what could I do in this
Right.
setting, right?
We have to create the steps. What are the right steps to take?
Yep.
Not, okay, we're just going to do this first and then we're going to do this. And maybe that'll come later with time as
Yeah,
we learn and become better statisticians.
that's right.
But at least especially for me, starting out with no commercial experience or analysis experience at all, it'll be something really useful.
Yeah, and on that front, I know you went into stats because you have some particular interests. How do you think this is going to help you getting a master's in stats? How will that help you going forward into your career?
So I actually watched one of your last interviews,
Yes.
and this I'm sure comes up a lot when you talk about actuarial, but it comes up in the statistics world too. The first thing that comes to mind is the money, right? A
Yep.
statistician probably going to make more money than a mathematician
Yep.
because of their involvement, the direct
In
involvement in
fact,
industry.
there are statistics on that.
Yes,
Speaking of
indeed, there are.
stats. All right, that was a lame little joke there, but yes.
I'm not going to deny that that was a reason that
hmm
I decided to move over.
Yeah.
One of
No,
the
that
big
that makes
reasons. Go
sense.
ahead. Okay.
No, that makes sense because like I feel like most fields and stats, from what I've seen, it's a pretty high average salary. So yeah, go ahead.
That wasn't, of course, the only intention. The other thing that I think that this program will help you with is as I've went through my math degree and as I'm going through my statistics degree now, uh, I'm finding that my interest doesn't lie in teaching as much as I thought it had in the past. I mean, I still enjoy it,
Yep.
and but I think that being able to be a part of some industry and actually use methods in statistics to analyze situations, answer questions, find solutions to problems every day is something that excites me a lot more.
Yep.
One of the things that I thought about would be a really cool career, and I don't know if this is what I'm going to do, but one of those stepping stones while I was deciding to get this degree were Well, I always loved flying. I love the airline industry. I love everything about it, even though it's confusing as heck and it's really weird. But if you can imagine the level of statistics that are used in every single piece of that operation, it's such an efficient system.
Oh, I'm sure it's
Um,
insane.
you're talking about just aircraft maintenance, crew location, flight planning, flight details and times, checks or not checks and balances, sorry, weight and measures, all these different pieces. I thought it could be I'd be really cool to be an analyst in that situation and see
Hmm.
how do these huge businesses run. Travel industry is really just exciting in general, but how can they just simultaneously handle these thousands of transportation with thousands of passengers every single day going to all these different destinations and all these different timelines and all these different monies, and it's just a huge thing, right?
Yep.
And statistics directly ties into that. So that's something I'm hoping I might be able to get my hands on in the future and see, and I definitely think this degree path would get me one step closer to that than a pure degree in mathematics.
That's super exciting. It's funny because for those who are watching, Ryan and I are kind of going in different directions in the same field. I was in kind of the corporate world, and then I decided I wanted to teach, so I'm coming back getting my master's. Ryan is now kind of drifting away from the teaching and going more into the applied setting, which is super cool. So yeah, we're kind of branching off there.
But who
um,
knows? Maybe I'll return to
and
teaching, just like
maybe
you did.
maybe you will. And actually, I'm still kind of dabbling in the whole corporate world anyway, because as you know, I have a summer gig doing actuarial work. I'm trying to work on
Yep.
some business stuff on the side, so I'm keeping kind of one foot in the applied side as well.
You gotta keep your life exciting.
That's right. That's the plan. So I was going to ask you, in terms of those who are thinking about going into a program like this, maybe they haven't started their undergrad, maybe they have started their undergrad, and they're thinking about a master's. What's the best background for going into something like this?
Statistics specifically.
Yeah.
So at our university, we don't actually have a undergraduate statistics program.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we had, I don't know if I would have done it. But my point is, I'm going into a master's, or I went into this master's with a math background. And to be honest, when I started this math background way back when I was just doing calculus and I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, I did not like stats. I did not like that everything was estimation
Uh-huh.
and all these distributions. And there's just so many things that just seem so like to me.
Yeah.
And so I only took two statistics courses. And it was in my second to last semester that I just had a conversation with one of the teachers who really just opened my mind and changed a lot of the way I was thinking about it. And I decided to take one more statistics course, um, just to decide if I wanted to do the
Yep.
master's, and that was enough. Um, and
Which
so
which course was that?
that was the capstone for mathematics. I actually took three capstone courses
Oh,
my
okay.
final semester. So it was the Introduction to Mathematical Statistics 2. And we're currently
Is
in Mathematical Statistics 2.
Yep. Is that
So
the same semester when you had like 10 jobs? I'm
no,
exaggerating, but
no,
yeah.
I cut down to two that
Oh,
semester.
okay. There you go.
No, that semester was pretty awful. Anyway, so my point is there. I didn't actually have a very strong statistics background. I thought that was going to be problematic, and potentially for some of the really big schools out there, that could be problematic. It could
Hmm.
be you wouldn't be as competitive to get into those programs.
Right.
But at NAU, it was sufficient. I showed a little bit of promise there. I showed a little bit. I showed promise because I was um, just because of the grades I got in my other courses, and also because I elected to take that statistics course that last semester. It shows my resolve that, well, I do want to get into this. I do want to learn it again. So I think with a basic general understanding of up through foundations, set theory, some proof experience, whether that's in mathematics, maybe you have something in finance. Um, Different programs require different schools require different qualifications,
Hmm.
different classes, but I don't think you need like an expert mathematics or an expert statistics background to get into this type of program.
Yeah, I was curious about it because I felt like a lot of schools don't have an undergrad in stats. Some do, but at least I don't think very many do. And getting a degree in math, you don't like you said, you don't necessarily have to have a full undergrad degree in math, but you should have a background in mathematics, in some proof, in some set theory, some things of that nature. Because I feel like actually having a math undergrad background help like if I were to choose between that and stats, probably having the math background is almost better because when you're applying or like when you're doing a statistics proof or you're applying some sort of measure theory type thing or something like that, you've actually seen it before. So I think a math background is pretty beneficial, although like you said, it could you could have a lot of different backgrounds for this.
I think you could, but I agree with you that having that is at least for the theory-based courses, which you will have to
Yeah.
take, is it is pretty crucial to have a good, solid base understanding of the
Mhm.
methods we use to prove things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's funny because before becoming an actuary, I didn't take any statistics at all except for some probability theory, which is kind of a subset of stats, I guess you could say. But yeah, I did my undergrad in math, took no stats course, and then I went into the whole actuarial thing, and then I got some more statistics background because you have to take all these exams to become an actuary. Um, so I learned a lot of that as I was taking those exams, which did help going into this program, but I really didn't have much stats background other than that. Um, but anyway, I wanted to ask you. So you and I both have graduate teaching assistantships. Can you give people an idea of what that is and the benefit of having that, and kind of what you do?
Yeah, so again, my experience is specific to NAU.
Yep.
We actually have quite a different GTA program than a
Mm-hmm.
lot of schools do, so we'll just keep that in mind. But here, if you become a GTA or GRA, which is a graduate research assistant, or there's another graduate position as well that they offer, not in the math department, but other departments. These are positions that give you either a partial or complete tuition waiver. A lot of times they include a stipend of a salary basically on top, and
Yep.
sometimes they include a few other benefits like health insurance or leave. For our school, we get a full tuition waiver, not fees. NAU is a stickler for
And
fees.
and fees are way more than you think they are. I will say
It's at
that.
least $1,000 a
Yeah,
semester
they're
in
horrible.
fees. But anyway, we get a complete tuition waiver. We do have the option of electing a health insurance, which we get for free, a
Yep.
student-based health
It's
insurance
a
program.
good plan too. I'm on the health insurance plan,
As am
so
I. It's excellent.
nice. Yeah.
And currently we also receive a $15,000 stipend over 9 months. So the 9 months that we are
Yep.
employed from August to May.
Yep.
Um, so our responsibilities each semester include teaching two sections of the same course, and we have, depending on where you are in your program and what program you're in, you essentially have four different courses that you could be teaching. They're all low level math or stat courses. So for our school, we have a modified Emporium style computer based learning, a hybrid learning situation that we do for some of our undergraduate math courses. These are extremely highly structured mathematics courses, but we as GTAs actually teach them. So even though we are labeled, if you would, as teaching assistants, and indeed a lot of the schools you would be a teaching assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are the instructor of record. We are the ones teaching, forming up what's going to happen in the class, teaching the class, grading, handling the problems of the students. We of course have a coordinator, an experienced supervisor who
Mm-hmm.
runs the general overview of all the classes to keep them structured, but we are doing those day-to-day nitty-gritty operations.
Yep.
So we get to teach two sections of a given course each semester. So we teach those, like I said, um, and then we also have duties involving, obviously holding office hours, like hopefully your instructors do as well, for our students. And
Yep.
also before this crazy situation that we find ourselves in, we were also doing tutoring duties and testing duties for additional hours in our Emporium style lab, helping students in any of those mathematics courses. So
Yep.
these courses could be algebra, they could be pathway to mathematics, which is the basic understanding of fractions and exponents and understanding how all those pieces play together to get you into algebra. You could do pre-calculus. You could also be looking at quantitative reasoning, which is a course that was designed by instructors here at NAU that goes over some basic probability theory, basic statistics and normal distributions,
Hmm.
basic finances, real world useful things that you should know how to handle.
Yep.
And finally, if you're in the statistics program here, you have a possibility of teaching one of the undergraduate intro to statistics courses where you look at bootstrapping methodologies and normal distributions, students' t distributions, and making predictions on various variables and confidence intervals and things like that. So that's something that hopefully you and I, Paul, will be
Yep.
doing next
Next year.
semester.
That'll be a fun one. Yep. Um, Yeah, no, it's so that's a really good background on kind of what a GTA is, and anyone who's thinking about it, there is a lot of benefit to it because, I mean, the amount of work you put in, the university says you should be doing about quote unquote 20 hours of GTA duties per week is what you're being paid for, but the reality is not every week takes 20 hours. Some could take 20 hours because like especially pre-pandemic when we were at school, like you said, we had to tutor, we had to monitor testing situations, we had to teach, we had to prep, we had to go to coordination meetings. So all that together definitely took a lot of time, and could take you over 20 hours. But some weeks will be less. But if on average you're taking about 20 hours a week for 9 months, and you're getting your entire tuition covered, and you're getting a stipend, and you're getting health insurance, it ends up being a pretty good deal. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, here in Flagstaff, a lot of people say the stipend is barely enough, and it's true.
It
There
is
are
true.
some towns where this is a very expensive town to live in.
Yes.
We're a mountain town, small town, college resort, ski resort
It's
kind of thing.
college resort. I'm like, I want to stay at that college resort.
Um, so it is difficult to live on,
Yeah.
but you can make it work. And if you consider, well, I'm getting a very high level degree completely paid for,
Yeah.
I'm getting health insurance, I'm not left destitute, I'm getting real teaching experience on
Yeah.
top of it, college level teaching experience, which you can put on the resume. It all adds up. And yeah, it's a fantastic deal. I mean, I don't have to work 4 jobs right now
Yeah.
to handle my living situation like I did as an undergrad. And again, actually, one of the reasons I also decided I had a scholarship for my undergraduate. I could have stayed the extra year and had my classes paid for,
Yep.
but I still have living expenses. I still have fees. I still have books. I still have food to buy and all these
Right.
other things. And you don't the masters with the GTA availability allows you helps you pay for that, even though it doesn't sound like that much. It is enough in a lot of places to get by if you do it right. So I think
And
that's 100% worth it.
yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, if you really need to, you could always work another little side job or take out a loan if you need to. I know loans are not ideal, but maybe you could just do a little bit to make up that gap, and it's going to be a lot better than had you had to pay for the entire thing, which would be a ton.
Absolutely.
So, and plus, like you said, you get the teaching experience.
You have
But
teaching experience, although some places, again, you have to look into your specific university. A lot of places, your college graduate teaching assistant because you are a teaching assistant.
yeah,
So you definitely want to look into those programs and see what are your responsibilities going to be. Is it something you can handle? Because as we've seen, not everyone can handle it,
yeah,
depending on what's
yeah.
going on in their lives or what anything else. So there is a lot.
I would
Um,
agree. That's a really good comment because number one, I have heard that NAU, the amount of responsibility that you have at NAU is a little bit more than a lot of other universities in terms of like the teaching and the other administrative duties. Is that what you've heard?
Yeah, I've heard that. Well, for one, you're actually teaching these courses, and that's not even what your title is, right? You're a teaching assistant,
Yeah,
and so a lot of these universities, you are a teaching assistant,
yeah,
or like or you're like a lab TA or something like that. A lot of the other programs on campus, not in the mathematics department. A lot of the other GTAs at NAU who are not in the math department, they are TAs. They might be hosting computer labs or biology labs,
Right.
but they're not the lecturers. They're not the instructors of record. So we have a pretty unique relationship with the students and responsibility in that regard.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, it's yeah, you gotta be very organized, structured. You gotta know when you're going into it that you're gonna be busy and that you'll be able to
Mm-hmm.
handle that. So, um, okay, it's kind of shifting gears though. Going to the pandemic now. So we were in a live setting. Obviously, as everyone has, we all switched to online. Um, what is it like not only being a grad student online, but also having to do the GTA duties and teach online? Uh oh, I might have lost him. Are you there, Ryan? Looks like we froze for a second. I will give it a minute to see if he comes back here. Oh, he's rejoining. Excellent.
Oh no, I didn't, but I'm here.
Oh, could you hear me that whole time? Uh oh, it's frozen again. It could be on my end. We'll wait a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because you're not frozen. When you're saying I'm frozen, I could still see you moving and talking.
Really?
Yep.
That was very strange. All
The
right,
quality
well,
has dropped a little bit, so maybe there's something going on. But
who knows? It said I had a little message pop up that said your connection is unstable, so I think it just froze for a second. Um,
okay, well, hopefully it doesn't do it again.
hopefully it doesn't do it again. All right. So anyway,
uh, yes.
pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. That was the question.
Yep. All right. So on the student side of things, um, it hasn't been an awful experience. I definitely miss going to the classes. It's harder in some days. It's harder to stay focused. It's harder to maintain a healthy schedule if you can sleep in and do all these things.
Yep.
Um, but if you can maintain a decent schedule for yourself, in some regards, you can get a lot of time back because not as much time is spent traveling, going to school. Um, so let me break it down this way. I have two different instructors across my three courses that I'm currently taking. And one of them does pre-recorded lectures that they post
Yep.
to our BB Learn, and you might use BB Learn, you might use D2L, you might use some other type of system, learning management software. They post it there. We watch the videos, and he also hosts virtual office hours where we can join him in on a Zoom session just like this
Mm-hmm.
and ask him questions. You still there?
Yep. I'm still here.
Okay,
It
you froze for a second
Oh
then.
really? I could still see you, but it got quiet for a second. So I don't know. We're having a couple connections issues. So sorry everyone, but it should hopefully anytime that happens, it'll come back again.
I'll just keep going.
We're still good. Yep.
Whereas and so that's pretty okay. I'm not having the horrible tough time in that class because of those the flexibility of joining of watching the videos, being able to still see your professor three
Yep.
days a week. Whereas on the other hand, I have another professor who is doing, excuse me, scheduled Zoom sessions that we need to join in,
Mm-hmm.
and he posts all of his notes online, which he did very nicely rewrite for us so that we could
Yes.
read all of them. And there's nothing necessarily bad about that, but it could be a little bit more annoying, if you will, to have to join. It's more like being on campus where you have to join the class a predetermined time every
Right.
day, but there could be other things going on. Maybe your internet goes out. There's less flexibility there. Um, he also doesn't offer any virtual office hours,
Right.
which can be kind of problematic because you can only communicate over email at
So,
that point for
and at that
questions.
point, Ryan and I are always talking about different problems we're working on or other students.
Yeah, we have to. So in a way, it's what brought us together more because we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly like,
It's true.
what is going on with this
what,
homework? I don't know what to
what the
do.
hell?
But in the grand scheme of things, it has not been like the worst experience for me as a student. I, for one, kind of enjoy the flexibility of being able to maintain a
Mm-hmm.
kind of my own schedule to an extent. Unfortunately, it is more difficult, I believe. You don't have the immediate access to resources like you did before. You don't have the constant coworkers and cohort of students around you.
Yep.
The social aspect is difficult. So it's definitely been a jumble there. As an instructor, what I've found is I don't mind teaching the Zoom courses, but hardly anyone comes because we've removed our attendance requirement because
Mm-hmm.
we feel that is too difficult to ask everyone to maintain a steady internet connection, access to resources constantly. That it is a privilege that not everyone has,
Right.
especially if they're no longer on campus. So, I'm not mad at anyone for that, but as a teacher, it is sad when you log on to a session, you prepare, you have examples ready, you're still lecturing, you're still teaching, and two people come
Yep.
and they don't show their faces on the camera, so you're just talking at names. And again, I can't blame them for any of these things because I understand the struggle as a student that it
Mm-hmm.
is. But as from a teacher side of things, it's a little sad.
Yep.
It's like, well, I'm here to teach you. I like seeing you. I like talking to you. And because there's this technology wall, it's so much less personable.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to ask as many questions. I don't ask as many questions as a student. Um, there's just a lot of factors there. So the response level and the interaction with students is very decreased,
Yep.
and so it's unfortunate. On the other hand, you have a lot more flexibility, um, being able to grade all these assignments online. Um, since you can, in a way, see your students more than just once a week, you're a lot more available over email. You can jump into Zoom sessions if they do have specific questions. But on the whole, I think I dislike it. And that's just because, again, the lack of communication you have with the students, the lack of certainty that you have with their situation and
Right.
their ability to learn is so interrupted for some of them. It's really difficult for them and for me as a teacher. So, um, as a student, I'm doing
Yeah.
okay. It's not that bad, but as a teacher, I would really prefer to be back in the classroom and actually seeing the students and talking to them. And I think for them, they would, as undergrads in their first year, this is for most of them, this has just got to be so difficult. They're still trying
Yeah.
to figure out how college works. They're still trying to figure out how to balance their life. And then their whole world gets flipped upside down. I mean,
Right.
all of ours got flipped upside down. It's
Yep.
difficult for everyone. But when you haven't been in the system for 3 years, you
Yep.
don't know how college works. You don't know how to adapt as well. So I definitely feel for them in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, similar to you, I can work independently pretty well. I miss, obviously, the social aspect. That's what I miss the most. But in terms of like our own classes, I'm doing all right. I feel like the material is exactly the same as what we'd be learning on campus. Most of the things are the same, but we don't have all the access to resources, as you pointed out, which is a challenge. And not seeing everyone is a challenge. But the teaching aspect is the biggest challenge in my world as well as yours. So, um, but anyway, we're a little over half an hour. I usually keep these to half an hour to 45 minutes. So I just have two or three more questions for you.
I'll try
And
to keep the responses short. I tend to ramble.
oh
I
no, no, you're good.
apologize.
This has been really interesting. I mean, I'm the same way. So, um, but I was gonna ask you back to the masters in stats. Um, I know it's different in different programs, but here at NAU we have an oral comprehensive. Can you explain to people what that entails and how that might be different from what one university might do compared to another?
For sure. So here at NAU, when you do finish or get to the end of your 2 year program for the master's in statistics, we don't have a thesis based option. So that's one of the big things, especially if you're a mathematics master's or some other maybe engineering master's or something along those lines. You work really hard all year, all these 2 years toward or longer toward a thesis, similar to a dissertation, but nowhere
Mm-hmm.
near as involved as a dissertation.
Yep.
You're doing research, you're doing experiments, maybe you're doing surveys, you're uh, making sure that all of your surveys are acceptable by the IRB. You have all these advisors who are doing this, and you have to defend the thesis. But here, we don't do that in the master's. I believe you can probably petition to do that in the stats program, but most of us just stick with the oral
Yep.
comprehensive. And so, what that is at the end of your 2 years, you will be you get to choose three different classes for which you will be tested on the material and how well you understand it, how well you can teach it back to the professors who all know the material, but they want to know how do you understand it? Can you make us understand it if we didn't know it? One of those classes must be a theory based course. So one of the mathematical statistics that we're taking right now, theory of linear models,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. One of those must be the required um, one of the required applied statistics courses. So that could be experimental design. It could be regression analysis. It could be I don't actually. I'm not sure if it could be time series analysis. You probably could swing time series analysis.
Mm-hmm.
It could be categorical data analysis. It could be one of those courses. And then the last one is free. You get to choose a theory or another one. So that could be any of the other ones that you didn't choose. It could be one of the coherent areas as long as it's within the math and stats department, I believe. And they could test you on that. So you could do something there like multivariate data analysis. You could do statistical computing or
Right.
R because we work in R in some of our courses. And so you have to sit on a panel of I think three professors, one for each of those
Right.
courses, and they will throw questions at you for 2 hours.
I think it's.
Uh,
I thought it was longer than that. Well, I know they have breaks, so maybe it might be.
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't gotten there yet. I
Yeah.
haven't started studying because I haven't thought about it. It's next year,
Yep.
but that's what we do. And as long as you can satisfactorily pass that, according to the professors, you're pretty much from then on you're going to graduate as long as you don't fail your next
Yep.
courses.
So
I
they pretty
also,
much just sit there and drill you with questions.
yeah, it
Pretty
sounds like
terrifying.
another note that just to bring up, I don't know if this is true across all master's programs, but here at NAU, you're not actually allowed to get more than two C's in your entire
Mm-hmm.
master's career.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind. Undergraduate's a little bit different there. C's get degrees, right? You've heard that all the time. A master's program, especially for the GTA position, your GPA cannot fall below a certain amount. If you get a C, you're essentially on probation,
Yep.
and if you get more than two C's, you're out of the program. So it's the C is bad here,
Yep.
at least.
Yeah, no, there is a little more pressure in that regard, especially knowing like you have your funding and your GTA all on the line in that regard. Um, but okay, so one thing I did want to mention though to all those actuaries that are watching, I feel like I'm a credentialed actuary now. Had I done a master's in stats before taking those exams, I will say it would have made the exam process a lot. It wouldn't have made it easy, but a lot easier than it was. Because like the first exam, you're doing all probability. Then there's a couple like more financial type exams, but then let's see, STAM, which is short-term actuarial math, has a lot of heavy stats in it. And I'm in mathematical statistics right now, as is Ryan, and a lot of those concepts come up in STAM, which I had to teach myself to take that exam. Um, and then even in the life contingencies exam, there's a lot of stats. So for those actuaries that are interested, stats is an excellent background, and I feel it would have been quite beneficial. And that's, in fact, that's why I'm going into a stats program because I want to teach actuarial science, and this is kind of the best theoretical background for that. And like some Bayesian topics do come up as well, and so it is a really good background. Um, All right, Ryan. So, getting close to the end here, I just wanted to ask you how long have you lived in Flagstaff and what are some of your hobbies for those who are interested in what you do on the side besides stats?
Yeah, stats every day. It's all I do.
That's right.
I lived in Flagstaff for 3.5 years. I started up here at NAU in 2016, in the fall of 2016 for my undergraduate, and so that's when I moved here. And
And
I've moved every year
where'd you
since
move
then.
from again?
Tucson. So
Yep.
Tucson, if you don't know, is the second largest city in Arizona. It's south east of Phoenix, and it's about
Mm-hmm.
90 miles north of the border of Mexico, I think. And it's also where the University of Arizona is. Uh, so go Wildcats.
Nice. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, screw those Sun Devils, right?
Yeah. Seriously. Oh, those
Anyway,
Sun Devils.
um, so I've lived in Flagstaff for 3.5 years. I used to come up here every summer. One of the main reasons I chose NE besides the teaching, so I guess not main reason, but a different reason, is the weather here is beautiful. The pine trees, the elevation, the air quality,
Hmm.
and the opportunity for all these outdoor activities. I don't do them as much as I should, but I was a Boy Scout. I got my Eagle Scout, and so I've done a lot of hiking, a lot of backpacking, a lot of camping, and that's some of the stuff I really enjoy doing and want to do more of while I'm here.
That's
This is
awesome.
the perfect town for it. We
It's
have a
amazing.
really nice urban trail system that goes all multiple trails all throughout Flagstaff and the
Hmm.
surrounding forests. We have one that runs through where my apartment complex here, where I live.
Hmm.
It's right outside my door, and then we go out there. My fiance and I take walks, and there's parks all around. There's just a lot of outdoor things to do. Can't do too much being around other people nowadays,
Yep.
obviously. But before that time, that's what a lot of what I like to do. I was never really into sports, but I do a lot more of the outdoor stuff. And then, of course, I play quite a few video games here at home,
I
especially
was
now that I
waiting. I was
don't.
waiting for that. I know you're a gamer.
I'm not a hardcore gamer, but I'm
What's
definitely.
what's your favorite game as of right now?
There's so many. I did just finish a couple weeks ago. I finished putting over 200 hours into The Witcher 3.
Damn.
Um,
I've heard of that one.
well, yeah, and the
Uh,
TV show
uh,
is what made me want to play it, which is kind of sad because I've owned the game for 2 years. And for
okay.
those of you who know, I mean, it's one of the best games ever. Beyond that, I've Grand Theft Auto 5. I love. I'm playing strategy game right now called Northgard. I used to be a big World of Warcraft player. Lots of different things here and there.
Nice. Yeah,
Paul is not a gamer.
I am not. I am not a gamer. I every once in a while I'll get addicted to one of those little games like Tetris or Minesweeper or those little
Hey,
addicting
Minesweeper is
games.
a good
It's
game,
a
man.
good game right there. But no, I've never been much of a gamer. Well, I did have some friends in high school who liked to play the, first person shooter type games and
Oh
we
yeah,
we
Call of Duty,
yeah,
Halo.
like that. Yeah, like that. And like we'd play on the network and stuff. Like I've done it, but I just never really got super into it. But most of my friends, most people I know are gamers. I don't. I think I'm the unique one. Um, but I do agree with you with Flagstaff. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to come here was, I knew about the program, but also I just love the area here. Because, like, I had lived in Phoenix in the past, so I knew about Flagstaff. I had driven through here. I really hadn't explored it much, but every time I drove through, it was like, man, it's in such a cool little town, and like just like you said, the trails. You got the mountain to ski on. It's just like fresh air here. It's night and day from Phoenix, and it's only like a 2 hour drive, which is crazy.
And for those of you who don't know about Tucson, it's like Phoenix. It's in a
It is,
valley. It's
yeah,
desert.
yep.
It's like all of Arizona. You think dry, desert, boring, whatever, and then you drive up to Flagstaff. About a third of the way through the drive, you're suddenly in the highlands, and the temperature drops, and it's just gorgeous. And it's like in a completely different
It,
environment.
and it's
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 amazing.
it is. It's so bizarre to me because when I drive from Phoenix, like I said, it's a 2 hour drive, and probably like for an hour and a half of that, it looks like Phoenix. And then it's like within the last half hour, suddenly you're like, oh, there's pine trees. Oh, the air feels kind of fresh. You've been going up, 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 up. Suddenly you're at 7,000 feet. It's crazy.
And it's absolutely beautiful up here.
Yeah. All right, Ryan. I really appreciate you joining. I think this was very beneficial, and good luck in the office hours in a little bit.
Yes, gotta get help on
Yeah,
homework.
I might be texting you later about that. So
Well, thank you very much for the invitation.
for
I really
sure,
enjoyed talking to you.
definitely. And I will talk to you later. For those who are watching, I apologize. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I've been quite busy, but I promise over the summer I'll do a few more. So, um, all right, Ryan, I will see you later. Over and out.
All right. Bye, Paul.
Bye.
Thank